Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast and get CME for this episode by clicking on the CME link in the show notes. Today, we welcome back Miguel Villagra. He's a hospitalist. His KevinMD article is titled The Link Between Thoughts and Emotions, How to Change Your Feelings by Changing Your Thinking. Miguel, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
So you've been on the show before. Go to kevinmd.com/podcast, click on the upper right-hand corner, search icon, and search for Miguel's last episode where he shares his story. But today I want to go straight into your KevinMD article. It's titled The Link Between Thoughts and Emotions, How to Change Your Feelings by Changing Your Thinking. How did this article come together?
It came together by my own personal experience. I've been burned out myself as hospitalist and medical director in the past, and I can tell you, Kevin, that by learning how my thought processing has been mind-blowing for me, not only in my professional, but even in my personal life. That's what I decided and led me to write the article and share it with some of the physicians that might be getting to know these issues and how the mind works might be helpful for them too.
All right. So tell us more about that. Tell us about your thought process.
Absolutely. So the first concept, that and this is, to be honest, this is nothing new. This is as old as humanity, is the idea of reality, how we perceive reality on our circumstances. It will definitely be defined depending on how your mind processes that information. Therefore, all your thoughts will lead to determine the emotions we might develop from depending on the circumstance we're dealing with. And eventually that will determine the actions we'll pursue and the outcome we will have on our life and also our profession. And that's why it's important to be aware of what I describe or I call cognitive distortion, which are pathological thought processing that might lead you to get in trouble in your life and your profession too.
So while you're a hospitalist and you were feeling these emotions of burnout, what kind of thoughts were you having that potentially led to that?
Yeah. One of the things, and I'm going to name just a few of them that I have seen a lot, not only personally, but as a medical director with some of my peers that were under my leading. One of them is the call all or nothing thinking. That everything is looking black or white, right? So I'm going to tell you personally, so I recently have an experience with a patient, which the patient outcome was not that well. And we deal with that before. We're taking care of sick patients. But the idea in my mind that I was able to catch up immediately was, I feel like a total failure. That was my thought process. And to be honest with you, when it happened once, that's expected and normal. But when you're doing repeatedly, you're definitely telling yourself, that inner voice telling you you're a total failure, you'll definitely get to be a total failure in your life and profession because you keep telling yourself the same. So I'm going to be honest. The first thing is just by being aware of what you're thinking, just that level of awareness can be empowering. But most definitely, ultimately, what you want to do is try to replace your thoughts with something that is more empowering and positive instead of negative that you're bringing into your life.
So let's use that technique to the example that you just mentioned. You said some of your colleagues or trainees have succumbed to that all or nothing thinking. What would you do to help approach that?
Absolutely. So the first thing I recommend, and that has become an habit into my life, is I do what is called a thought download. So after the end of the day, I spend like 3 to 5 minutes to write down all my thinking of everything that I experienced through the day. And it's not something that will be that time consuming again. 3, 5 minutes that you spend, and you start seeing what your mind was thinking throughout the day. And as I just told you earlier, just by building that level of awareness, you can be definitely kind of be more, is definitely empowering. But ultimately, what you will do is just write down those thinking. And sometimes by you seeing the nonsensical of this thinking, it will definitely help you and lead you to replace it with some other ideas. Going back to the failure, that particular outcome patient that didn't go well, give me that thinking of I'm a failure. Well, guess what? I have a lot of compliments for patients the same day, but I was just ignoring that because I was just focused on the negativity of the poor outcome patient. So when I write down my thinking, and I saw that even the balance for the day was more positive toward negative. That sometimes doesn't happen, right? Sometimes you might have just a completely negative day. But for that particular experience, I was able to kind of definitely drive my thinking from the negativity to a more positive one.
One of the other things that you mentioned in your article was the concept of overgeneralization and how that can trap you into anticipating negative outcomes. So, talk more about that.
Yeah, that's definitely like kind of tagging into the prior one. It's kind of similar, but I call more like the bad luck event. Is you're tagging a poor event or having a negative event into something that will be happening over and over again. And I'm gonna tell you how I gonna give you an example. I recently have a friend who was investing in a new venture startup, and the investment went poor. It didn't go. It didn't have the results he was expecting. And this person is very smart, savvy investor, doing really well in real estate and some other, but this particular investment didn't go well.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that in even new this venture capital and new startups, among 10, 8, 7 of them will don't do well. Maybe a couple of them will give you a decent investment return, and maybe one will give you a great return. And he knew that. But he was just thinking, that because this event happened, he just had this bad luck, and this is going to be happening over and over again. And this particular very savvy investor, it was leading to inaction. He was not even following his amazing investment plan just because at this particular event, he was just catching up on it and focused on it. And he was just thinking that things are going to happen over and over again and bringing this bad luck effect into his or personal and investing life. So that's the best example I can give you of it. And again, this particular person, by understanding how good he was doing in so many of the other investment he was doing, he was actually led him to start going back on track on his investment plan.
So, just as a segue from that, a lot of times people focus on a negative and they don't embrace the positive, right? Sometimes you say disqualifying the positive. So, talk more about how some of us in medicine just don't focus on what's positive in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So, disqualifying the positive is something I see a lot. And we take for granted that what we're doing, we're saving life every day. And sometimes we have compliment for patients, even though as you know, healthcare system is leading to patients be more angry and frustrated, and sometimes they pick on us. It's very challenging to practice medicine nowadays. But sometimes we ignore even the minimal compliments that we have. I remember when I was a medical director, we had this accomplishment table where we were just putting even minimal, positive outcome or even a many minimal compliment we were having for patients, because sometimes we just ignore that. I can give you an example. I recently have a patient that we saved his leg. He was having an acute embolism on one of his major arteries. So I was with this vascular surgeon. We were running together, and this particular patient was very rude with the staff and everything, but he was very complimentary of the surgeon saving his leg. And I remember when we walk out of the room, this particular surgeon, who is amazing, he told me, "This is nothing for me." And I was telling him, "Why? I mean, this is what I do, and why you are undermining, this compliment from this patient. You just save his leg, So sometimes you get to this idea and you take for granted to what you're doing, and what you're doing is fulfilling your career, why you get into medicine to save life, and sometimes we do save and do an amazing job, and we just ignore that.
So, we've talked about a few areas of the thought process that can lead to negative emotions. Now, in order to change some of those thought processes, where do you recommend that we start? There's just so many things that we could potentially influence. Where do we start?
Right. So again, I would say the first is to be aware of it, or this exists. The second thing is to be aware of something called the comprehensive trap. So being aware of something, that doesn't mean that will drive a change in your behavior. So by being aware of it and implementing some changes on your life and your routines, and I already give you the first example, like doing a minimal thought download and some journaling could be extremely useful for most. And meditation helps for some, because you can see those thoughts floating around. But now, you need to understand, Kevin, that going from point A to point B is a whole process.
Yeah.
You don't expect someone
Mm.
to go from I'm a total failure to see I'm a total winner, right? So, but definitely this process takes time. And that's why sometimes you need to be consistent on building new habits to make you aware of your thought processing, and you will be seeing even minimal changes, we will have a compounding effect. And that truly have this compounding effect on my personal and professional life. But change takes time. So don't get discouraged by not see an immediate change.
So in your case, how much time did it take in order to make an impact that moved the needle?
Well, the first is I'm gonna say, practically speaking, like the idea of the journal, in order for me to be truly consistent with it, you need to do it at least for a few weeks, 3 to 4 weeks minimum. And then you will say, yes, this is a routine. But for doing this and making these changes, sometimes it takes a few months, to be honest, and that's something that everyone needs to be aware of it, because sometimes they get discouraged because they just did it once and they expect everything to be changing, and it doesn't work that way.
So tell us a success story through one of your coaching sessions where you implemented some of these strategies to help change the thought process of one of your clients and really move the needle for them. And you don't have to go into a lot of detail, but just give us a before and after picture.
Yep. I recently have this amazing hospitalist physician, a female in her late 40s. She take a lot of time with the physician, very knowledgeable. But she was very frustrated with the job. She was actually planning on quitting her job, So I have a coaching session with her, and we were going over her thought processing, and her main issue was that he was leaving work later than everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this particular physician has a very supportive husband. His 2 kids were taken care of. She really didn't have an issue specifically of the fact of leaving late. But it was her thinking, because in her mind, she was thinking that she was not like everybody else. She thought that she was not a good, efficient physician, as everybody else was leaving earlier than her, even though she didn't have a problem with that again.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to point out to her, what is the standard of rounding, right? So it's 20 minutes, 40 minutes, there's no such a thing as that, right? So, and she was an amazing physician, having a lot of compliments from patients, and she was not having a problem with leaving a little bit later than that. I just emphasized the fact that she was spending the time that she felt she needed to spend with her patient, to go deep into their chart and so on and so forth. So this particular physician didn't need to leave her job. She just need a little bit of coaching to understand her thought processing, because she was feeling like, I remember the first time she used the word, I should be leaving earlier. And I kind of challenged her, why you should leave earlier if you're just spending enough time to take care of your patient and leave when you were done. And she was just feeling really, really good by understanding that she was nothing wrong with that, because when you all use the word I should, you're using a little bit of shaming thinking behind it, like you feel there's something wrong with you. And I encourage her to understand that there's some other physicians that leave. In my career, I have seen physicians that leave later too. And some of them, they have issues with that. But this particular one did not have any issues. And she ended up staying on her job. She feel very good with that. And because there was nothing wrong with her, it was just her thinking telling her there was something wrong with her by just leaving later.
We're talking to Miguel Villagra. He is a hospitalist. His KevinMD article is titled The Link Between Thoughts and Emotions, How to Change Your Feelings by Changing Your Thinking. Miguel, tell us some of your take-home messages that you want to leave with the KevinMD audience.
Absolutely. I will say that understand your thought processing and your thought pattern could be very empowering and eye-opening for a lot of physicians. I will say that take a message. If you feel you're struggling, try to seek help, because sometimes just minimal twist on your thought processing can be mind-blowing and life-changing for a lot of physicians. And embrace minimal winnings on your practice. Don't ignore those, celebrate them, and spend some time to reflect on what's going on with your life. That would be my takeaway points.
Miguel, thank you so much for sharing again your time and insight, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.